So Jim, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back on the cuddle couch.
You're back. I'm relieved, to be quite honest. I don't know what was going on, but there was a period of time where a good friend and colleague of mine, Andre, was very worried about you as well.
Tina too.
Tina too.
Or Tina Boy.
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
she's affectionately known as.
They came in, they did a broadcast, and they left, and I don't know where they went.
I don't know if you have. We probably can't pull to that broadcast right now, but that was one of the funnier broadcasts I've ever
like
seen.
that.
I was watching it with Cole Camp-Lease, Brad Kozlik, and Bart Scott, who's another guy. I don't know if it's not. I know it's Bart. I'm thinking Scott, but I don't think that's his last name. That's a Jets linebacker's last name.
Yeah.
But another really cool guy, Bart, at Cole's house, and we were hysterical. It was fun. I mean, yeah.
Well, we've talked about doing the fictional type stuff before, and just like making it like a skit type thing. Not quite so much for DTLT today, but just in general to be broadcasting more stuff like this and really play around with
and
the
make
media.
it fun.
Yeah.
Well, the whole idea too that it kind of was for me nostalgic for Summer of Oblivion.
Yeah.
When we were just doing that stuff every day.
Yeah. Julia tweeted me at one point. She had just seen the thumbnail and she said, "Are y'all recreating Summer of Oblivion?" And I was like, "Oh, not quite," but
it felt like that.
Yeah.
I mean, just how much pressure that was too.
We'll need more props in here if we do more of that.
Well, it's funny. I mean, since you're not doing a very good job with the interview, maybe I'll help you along. You know, when I went to Penn State and I was talking to them, and the people at Penn State are awesome. I mean, big shout out to Cole Camp-Lease and the work he's doing there.
Yeah.
Alan Gorky, Brad Kozlik, Chris Millay, Stubbs is a guy I met. I mean, there's all sorts of awesome people there.
Now, who
Robin to go.
Who was the audience that you were speaking to there? Was it instructional tech folk, or was it IT people?
I think it was a lot
faculty?
of instructional tech, some faculty, and a few librarians.
A few librarians.
The librarians there had a lot of great questions, and they were really fascinated about this idea of the archive. And I think they were really piqued by the questions I was raising about Google and Google as advertising company versus a kind of archival, kind of archival public welfare kind of program that we see our librarians, at least our public libraries and our local community libraries. And so there's some dissonance, and I think the librarians picked up on that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cool folks, and it was kind of a mixed group. And the reception of it seemed pretty well. I mean, the fact is the hour presentation I gave was kind of the cap of almost an 8-hour day of talking to people.
Right. I saw you were they broadcasted some of it on Ustream and on the radio, and
it was great. We talked portfolios. We talked digital storytelling and their new media. They have a media commons that's doing awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And I did an interview for the PSU Buzz, which is kind of like where they blog their daily buzz about what happened that day, and that was pretty cool. And, it just was cool. Like, people wanted to talk, and they were interested in the stuff, and, we share a lot of the same interests in terms of what they're doing there with their blogging system, what we're doing here. But what I think you'll really like, Timmy, is like the stuff you've been doing with DTLT today, the stuff we've all been experimenting with over the class and beyond with the radio and with DS106 TV. Was really piquing their interest.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really excited about this to the point where it was a really good meeting before the presentation. It was like a 2-hour meeting with the Media Commons group.
Sure.
And so they're really cool. The Media Commons group is basically something set up by ETS, which used to be run by Cole, is now being run by Alan Gorky, and I think it's led by Chris Millay.
Okay.
Chris Millay and his group basically has created a whole series of different media spaces around campus and on other campuses that anyone could go in and create.
Right.
There's a Final Cut, there's cameras, there's a laptop, whatever you want. It's there, do it.
Right.
And there's people there to help you, to show you how to do it, and they're all over campus. So it's not just one big place. So we got talking about this, and one really cool story that came out while we were talking was they have these little recording boxes that almost look like tall phone booths that you go in, they're all set up, you go in there and you record.
Nice.
So the idea was, why don't you guys do something like DS106 TV or DTLT Today or DS106 Radio, and you put a one-button thing where anyone could go into any kind of like phone booth that you set around campus and broadcast.
That would be intense.
And you have channels from all over campus that people are just stepping in and broadcasting.
Well,
so we were going crazy during this discussion at the possibilities, because rappers are using these things all over campus to record raps.
That's so cool.
Isn't that trippy?
Yeah.
So why not take advantage of that and make it part of the kind of ecosystem of communicating at PSU?
Well, what it reminds me of, somebody tweeted this out the other day, this idea, Grant's been working on this PBX system, which will basically allow people to call in from a telephone number.
The party line.
Yeah, the party line, so to speak. This conference line that would automatically go live to the DS-106 radio.
Yeah.
And someone said, as soon as we get the 800 number, we should have 1,000 postcards printed up with that phone number on there and some basic instructions.
That's awesome.
And just send them all over the place. Random addresses, just random spots and locations, just leave cards places with this phone number. People see it. And just all of a sudden, can you imagine listening to the radio and anybody is just popping up on there, hey, what's this? What's going on? Telling their stories. It's like an audio version of Post Secret.
I love it. I mean, I love the idea, and I talked about that a bit because I remember that, on the few payphones that are left. I also like that, radio and TV, it's retro.
Yeah.
Now it's radio, TV, and phone booths.
It is.
And you get a little sticker and you stick it on the phone booth. Call this number and get on the radio now.
Yeah. And
someone does it just by chance and is like, hello? And just think about what that would mean to the dynamic of the radio station.
Well, and I know Penn State gets excited about this. Cole was on the radio last night, and he was sort of talking about this idea that we need to get more flexible. We need to be flexible and open to these ideas, and traditionally the university has not been the case with that.
Yeah.
When I came to Mary Washington, part of what drove me to this department was that it felt more like a research and development facility where you were free and open to explore these ideas, and a lot of people, I think, don't get that kind of freedom, and it's unfortunate because going forward, I think more and more that's where the amazing ideas are going to lie, is in the spaces and the nooks where you can start, playing around, that playground.
And there's no two ways about it. We got lucky when we hired you, and that's really a kind of offshoot of DS-106. And I think what Penn State University is going through right now is interesting because, like us, at the same time, we were developing a lot of the same tools, although they did it for a far bigger number. Right. They enterprised it right away. I mean, they're really all over that stuff. So PSU blogs blew up. They have thousands and thousands of posts, thousands and thousands of users. I mean, that's a successful system. But then you have to support that system, and a lot of your resources that went to create it are supported. So they're in the transition right now of kind of saying, okay, what can we cut, what can we keep, to open up that experimental space, because PSU has been great. Penn State has been amazing at doing innovative work on the fly.
Yeah.
And, I think that's right now kind of like we were last year with still UMW blogs. DS-106 was our kind of way for us as a group and beyond to kind of say, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And kind of engage it.
Start playing around and figure out what's going to happen.
And we had no plan, okay, out of this we want something like web radio or web video to come. It just happened.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's what they need. They're going to do too, I imagine.
Well, and what's exciting about when they do it is because they have such a huge audience and they can dedicate the people to developing this kind of stuff. You're going to see some amazing things coming out of Penn State for real. You imagine with us, we've just been, playing around. Grant Potter created the radio by himself. I played around with the TV thing, and we've been doing that. But it's, it's sort of a ragtag group that's just been playing around with this stuff. Penn State, I mean, they'll be able to throw 30 developers at this and start making amazing things.
They do bring, if they start developing for open source platforms that we're familiar with, for example, which will be unnamed, the amount of resources they could throw at something like that is impressive, and I think it would really make the educational world stop for a second and say, oh, maybe we should be looking at this open source application versus this vendor solution.
Sure.
Because you have, a series of crack developers, and not only would there be crack developing, but also you'd have crack professors and high-profile researchers, and Penn State's an interesting place because it's one of the few public Ivies, kind of like the UC systems and stuff, and you want to believe in the vision of a public Ivy because it's like the idea of you get the prestige and the education that you would get maybe at an Ivy, but it's kind of more of a level playing field. It was kind of the vision of the public education, which I still somewhat subscribe to that vision, and education always gets, when you get deep enough, it's all a business, but you want to believe that, and they have, 94,000 students? What I like about Penn State University versus UMW is there couldn't be two more opposite schools.
Right.
We're both public.
Yeah.
But one's a 4,000 liberal arts, kind of, gone through four presidents in the last 5 years, not sure where it is still trying to figure out what great liberal arts means. We have this kind of real identity crisis. Whereas Penn State has anything but.
Right.
It's like Joe Paterno, like Penn State. It's like the thing.
94,000 students, And
And so I like how we're paralleling Penn State in some weird kind of remora sense.
But then, I mean, the thing is, it's not always about the numbers and the money.
Yeah.
It's that flexibility. And the bigger the ship is, the harder it is to turn.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of the challenge that Cole sees in steering his group in different directions.
Well, and he's been impressive about it in the past, and I'm sure he
Yeah.
will. Because, think of other Pac or Big Ten schools or whoever who are doing stuff, and it's like, Ohio State? Like, I don't know of other schools that big.
Yeah.
That are kind of doing stuff on such an institutional scale.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to watch them. And, Penn State's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a big school.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of kind of, it seems like when you go on, it's a city within itself.
Uh-huh.
But I actually did get to go to see Beaver Stadium.
Did you?
I took a picture with Joe Paterno's statue.
Nice.
And it was fun. I actually had a friend who went, Jesse Pepper, who went to Penn State. And so I had been there a couple of times as an undergraduate. Mm-hmm. But it was so big and so different from when I remember it 25 years ago, however long that was, 20 years ago, that it was like going home. That was going to a very different place again. So notice I said it was almost like going home again.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I don't know.
You might want to search your feelings.
I have to search. We'll see.
Search your feelings. So, interviewer, any more questions for me?
Well, the only other thing I was going to mention was Brad Kozlik. You mentioned him.
The great Brad Kozlik.
Yeah.
That's
so
actually officially his name now. It's the great.
He added it on at the beginning.
The two beginnings. Okay. The great, and then Brad Kozlik.
I'll make sure to edit that part out so that no errors there.
It's the great underscore.
Underscore?
So the great is one first name. The great.
Is there a space
underscore?
between?
No, it's the underscore great. And then Brad is his middle name. Kozlik is his last name.
I'm going to need you to throw that out.
Yeah, maybe we'll throw up a visual.
Okay, great.
With that.
But anyway, so he commented on my blog because after he met you, he found me on Twitter and he was reading some of my posts about this live streaming stuff. And then he saw the post where I talk about Media U, the idea that I had of getting away from iTunes U and doing stuff on the web. And he said, well, Penn State's kind of doing something similar. And so what it turns out is that, so they've got their blogs at PSU, which is powered by Movable Type.
That's right.
And they're integrating the media and audio stuff into that so that, each blog has these media posts that automatically get fed into iTunes, which is amazing. It's not quite the idea that I have in terms of using WordPress to do it, but they're doing it right now. And so it's like these blogs are powering iTunes U, but they don't have to deal with iTunes U at all. It just gets fed in there.
Yeah, and I think they figured that out like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And, that's the thing. I mean, you have CUNY working on it with Boone and Matt Gold and Mikhail and Luke Waltzer. So you have a lot of great development going on at CUNY. A lot of great development going on at UBC with Brian Lamb and Novak and his group, which is just amazing. And now, potentially, with WordPress, you might have other folks coming on who have a lot of development chops. We've been doing our stuff in terms of just experimenting with it. But, I mean, I think there are points now of some critical mass around kind of thinking about how a media situation where we start sharing and building. Because your Media U also does something that I don't know if they're doing with Movable Type, but the idea behind it is you build a site, and that site becomes kind of like a media profile for a class.
Right.
Here's all your episodes on YouTube. Here's all the videos you want to share. Here's all the audio you want to link. It comes to be kind of like a visually, aesthetically pleasing way of designing a syllabus around or a class around media as well as pages and posts and stuff.
And it means
and that's a cool little twist to it.
And you don't have to log it down. So people who aren't actually students can still go in there and consume that same content. They could go back and, track the course through the lectures and the videos and the posts that you created.
And the idea is mashing up the reaction to that media with the students, which really brings me back to some of the stuff Martha did with DS-106. The idea of you have the assignment, but then you have the reactions to that assignment, or people who did that assignment right under it.
Exactly.
Like, so you have the media in the class, but hopefully then you can aggregate blogs about that media. And students who talked about that. See, that's where you start to get into that dynamic space.
You can aggregate the blogs, you can aggregate the social network information. That's the beauty of it. That's all the stuff that iTunes U left out. It's this own little container where you can't get to any of that other crucial information.
Yeah, and I think iTunes U is a real big, I think it's a failure in the larger picture when you think about what it did for delivering media for universities. I mean, all it did is it provided a nice marketplace for those who were willing to get in. I mean, most of the stuff in there is locked down anyway.
It was about convenience for the user, I guess, but,
Yeah, it never proved to be much. And, I think it's time. Like, it's never proved to be much, but because Apple was in the market, seemed like very few other people tried to.
Right.
There's Kultura. But as much as I hear about Kultura, and I know the show's not about Kultura and we probably have to go, but, I mean, Kultura is like the open source solution that wasn't.
Right.
Like, it's always like, it's open source, but...
They'll have a salesman on the phone trying to sell you on it.
Like, we tried to deal with them, and it was really terrible.
Yeah.
The business they gave us, and I almost felt like, you know what, A, you're not open source, and B, your claim to be open source seems to always be followed up with a pitch.
Yeah.
And a pitch that almost makes it like it's open source, but that's way too much trouble. Let's try this. So maybe I should do my research and see what really is there. I mean, I've heard a lot about them. A lot of people use them, but like, what's Kultura's deal?
And the thing is, I don't necessarily have a problem with third parties who take open source products and they add on to them and charge for them. I mean, the people who develop WordPress do that with VideoPress, with the Automatic stuff. But at the same time, Automatic's not like saying, "Hey, we noticed you downloaded WordPress. We'd love to have a salesman talk to you about our backup solutions for your university," or something like that. I mean, more and more it seems like the ship might be steering that way. But right now, it's less so. That's not the core idea of what they're going for.
Well, and VideoPress is not. I mean, VideoPress is open source code.
The code is open source, but the solution that they sell people is $60 a year or something for people to use it on their own without having to install something on their server.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a paid service that they open source the background code to, but at the same time, it's like, okay, they open source the code, but the code hasn't been updated in 2 years. So the question is, like, are you using 2-year-old code on your website, or have you been continually playing with this product and you just threw that out there 2.5 years ago and then didn't do anything since?
And I'd like to see how that works with Kultura, too. Like, what they're doing in the kind of open source field.
It would be interesting. Well, it's good to have you back, Jim.
Well, yeah, it's good to be back.
Good.
Back home.
Back home.
Home. And, hey, Baba
Where
Stock.
you belong.
Next week's going to be interesting.
Yes.
We have a lot of people coming into Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
We're getting ready for Baba Stock.
A lot of our DS-106 natives showing up here.
And we're going to be doing stuff. Next week is going to be a kind of marathon of media.
Yeah.
So get ready. We're coming at you.
The TV, the radio, we're going to do it all.
We own you. The vertical and the horizontal. Do it with me, Tivy. The vertical and the horizontal.
Horizontal.
DS-106.
See ya.